All right, today we're going to do something, well, a little different. We're diving deep into four huge Quranic ideas. Now, these are words you've probably heard translated in a very religious way, right? But what if I told you that when you look at their original Arabic roots, they actually lay out a stunningly detailed blueprint for human consciousness itself?
So let's just kick things off with a big question, one that's going to frame everything we talk about today. What if that word we always translate as faith? What if it's not about blind belief at all? What if it's really about finding a deep, unshakable sense of internal security?
And that's really the heart of what we're doing here. We're going to look at four keywords: Islam, Iman, Kufr, and Shirk. And we're going to strip away the labels. We're not treating them as religious badges, but as universal states of the human mind, based on how the text itself actually defines them.
Okay, let's get into it. First things first, how do we even begin to do this? How do we get to the core meaning of these words without all the layers of interpretation that have been added over centuries? Well, the answer, according to this analysis, is pretty amazing. The Quran basically acts as its own dictionary. The secret is to go back to the three-letter Arabic roots of the words. When you see how the same root is used over and over again in different places, its true core meaning just pops right out. It becomes undeniable. Let me give you a perfect example. The root A-M-N. From this single root, you get words like amin, which means trustworthy, and amana, which means a trust. You see the theme here? It's always about security, safety, and being protected from fear. So when you see the word Iman coming from that exact same root, it's not a huge leap to see it as a state of internal security, is it? It's so much more than just belief. And that one little insight, it completely unlocks one of the most important distinctions in the whole text, the difference between Islam and Iman. Because, and this is key, they are absolutely not the same thing. You don't even have to take my word for it. The text spells it out for us right here. In this verse, a group of people comes along and says, hey, we've got Iman, we have that security. But the message corrects them. It says, whoa, not so fast. You have submitted on the outside, that's aslamna, but that deep internal security of Iman, it hasn't actually settled in your hearts yet. It's a crystal clear line drawn in the sand between the external action and the internal state.
Okay, to make this really stick, the source material gives us this brilliant analogy. I love this. Think of a house, right? Islam, or submission, that's like the act of just walking through the front door. You've decided to enter. But Iman is that feeling you get once you're inside. You feel the solid walls, you know you're protected, you're safe. See the difference? One is an action, the other is the feeling that comes from that action.
So let's just lay it all out. On one side, you've got the Muslim, the one who submits. This is all about the outward stuff, your actions, getting in alignment, basically just stepping onto the path. But then you have the mu'min, the secured one. And this is totally internal. It's a condition of your consciousness, a state of deep conviction and peace. And here's the kicker. You can be a Muslim without yet being a mu'min.
And how do you know if you've really reached that state of Iman? Well, the very next verse gives us the litmus test. It says a true mu'min is someone who, after finding that security, did not doubt. The Arabic term used is lam yartabu. It literally means they no longer shake or waver on the inside. So Iman isn't just a belief, it's verified security. It's when the doubt finally stops. Okay, so if the goal is to get to that place of internal security, what stops us? What are the big roadblocks? Well, this analysis points to two really powerful states of mind: Kufr and Shirk.
Let's start with kufr. Now, this gets translated as disbelief all the time, but the root word, kfr, literally means to cover something up. Get this, the Quran uses a form of this same word to describe a farmer, calling him a kufar, because what does a farmer do? He covers a seed with soil. So kufr isn't about not knowing something. It's the active choice to bury a truth you already see.
And the second major obstacle is shirk. The root shrk means to make a partner or to split. This has nothing to do with ancient statues. Think of it as a psychological condition. It's the fragmentation of your own consciousness. It's what happens when you set up all these competing bosses in your head, your ego, what society thinks, your bank account, instead of just aligning with one unified reality. All that splitting creates chaos inside. And you know what? These two things are totally connected. It's a cause and effect relationship. When you deliberately cover up a truth, that's kufr. You create this void, a vacuum in your awareness. And what happens to a vacuum? Something has to rush in and fill it. In this case, it's all those competing partners, all those conflicting authorities. That's shirk. So covering the truth directly leads to splitting your consciousness. So now we have the pieces of the puzzle. We have the goal, and we have the obstacles. Let's put it all together and see this complete architecture of consciousness that the text seems to be laying out. First, let's look at the downward spiral, what we can call the path of covering. It all starts with that active choice to cover a truth you recognize. That, as we saw, forces you to create partners to fill the void. And where does that lead? Inevitably to a state of internal division, confusion, and, anxiety.
But there's another way, the path of consciousness. This one starts by recognizing what the text calls our Fitrah. You can think of it as our factory settings, our inbuilt nature that's already designed to recognize truth. Once you see that, you make a conscious choice to align with it. That is Islam. And the result, the destination of that alignment, is that unshakable state of internal security, Iman. And here it is, all laid out side by side. You have these two fundamentally different ways of operating. The path of consciousness is built on unity. It leads to a state of security. The result is clarity and peace. This is what the text calls a deen, which means a whole way of life, a system. The other path, it's founded on splitting and partners. It leads to a state of covering truth, and the result is confusion and anxiety. The source argues this is what becomes religion in the sense of division and conflict.
So what's the big takeaway here? Why does any of this matter? Because when you look at it this way, through this linguistic lens, the whole message changes. It stops being a call to join some exclusive club and transforms into something else entirely, a universal instruction manual for any human being, anywhere, on how to achieve profound inner peace. Which leaves us with one final big question to think about. If we start seeing these ancient concepts not just as religious rules, but as a detailed map of the human mind, what really changes when religion becomes consciousness?